Thank you, Christoph. I'd like to take the next 15 or 20 minutes to walk you through our EBX software. As you can see, I'm going to be logging into EBX through a web browser. That is because everything from EBX is presented through a web browser. I'll log in as an administrator. When someone logs in, EBX determines what should be shown on the screen based on those users' rights and permissions. As an administrator, I have rights to see everything. So you'll see an administration tab where I can configure the software, a data services tab, a modeling tab, etc. To start with, I'd like to start in the data tab. The data tab is where a user can interact directly with the data. And I'm going to choose our corporate demo domain, but there could be multiple domains in here. I could have HR, I could have general ledger, and all these domains can interact with each other, as well as be specialized for regions, etc. In the corporate demo domain, I have several tables. Some of them are reference tables, like ISO tables for country, currency, region. And then I have the party table. For today's demo, I'm going to be working with parties and their legal relationships to each other. By default, we display the parties in table format. I can choose any one of these parties, double-click on them, and open them up. And you'll see information about that party. I just have very basic information. And whenever there's a link within the model to this domain or another, I have a drop-down list box, which allows me to choose the values, or a preview link, which allows me to see that object that I'm linking to. All of these user interfaces are generated based on the model, the rules in the model, and my permissions. If I wanted to see the data in a different view, I could easily create a hierarchy. Hierarchies are dynamic, and they're created on the fly. I don't need to copy my data to create a hierarchy. I simply change the way I'm presenting the data. Let's create one. In this case, I have a legal parent relationship, so I want to create a legal hierarchy. I simply click on View and create a multi-table view or hierarchy. I'll give it a name. We'll say Party by Region. I'll say Party by Legal Parent by Region. And EBX presents for me all the dimensions based on the model, enumerations, etc., that are available. So I can drill into the legal parent relationship, and then from that legal parent, I can drill into the state, the country, and the region of that legal parent. Legal parents are recursive relationships, so that'll work as many levels as there happen to be. Next, I can choose whether I want the presentation to be hierarchy or tabular. A tabular presentation would repeat all of parent nodes like a spreadsheet would, but in my case, I'm going to do a hierarchy. And I'm going to choose to prune the hierarchy. That means that if a branch of my hierarchy has no leaf nodes, such as countries that don't have entities in them, I don't want them in my hierarchy. Finally, I'll make this available for all profiles. Now I'm going to configure those levels. At each level that I named in my hierarchy, I have a choice of putting custom labels and displaying one or more fields from that level, as well as creating a filter. And these filters can be blocks of criteria, such as all the criteria must match in one block, or none of the criteria, or at least one criteria must match, and I can mix and match these blocks. Filters and labels can be set at each level of the hierarchy. This allows me to create that hierarchy not only via permissions, but maybe within filters for division, geography, etc. In this case, I'm going to take the default and just create and apply this hierarchy. Immediately, you can see that the parties are now shown in a legal hierarchy of Americas, United States, Delaware, New Jersey, New York. And when there's a hierarchical relationship, such as JP Morgan, you can see I can drill into the different parts of JP Morgan. But hierarchies aren't just a way of displaying data. I can maintain the data directly within this hierarchy. For instance, if I decide that one of these divisions of JP Morgan is actually a subsidiary, I can simply select it, and I have several options. Duplicating it, deleting it, I can export the hierarchy to a spreadsheet, or maybe I just want to move this node. So I'm going to move this node, and EBX determines what are the valid levels on which I can move this node. Am I changing a legal hierarchy relationship? Am I moving it to another state, etc.? In this case, I'm just going to move it underneath this particular entity, and now you can see it exists under that entity. And if I was to click on this and open it up, EBX has changed the legal parent to be Japan Limited. I can have as many hierarchies as I want. They're very lightweight and easy to use. A good example would be there's a legal relationship, but I may have another division of my company that wants to view the hierarchy differently. Let's say a sales organization. They might want to have a different relationship of these entities. Let's go to data modeling. Data modeling is where I maintain my data model. Now I'm going to choose the version of the data model I'm working on, corporate demo version 1. Then I'm going to make a change to the party table. It's very easy to make changes in EBX. The model becomes instantly available once I publish it. And here's where I specify my rules, my relationships, different types of validation, etc. In this case, I'm going to create a new relationship for party, and it's going to be a foreign key to itself, being the sales relationship. I'll call it sales parent, give it a different display name, and I'm going to edit it because I want this sales parent to inherit from the legal parent. In other words, I don't want to have to define it. I want it to start as the legal hierarchy. So I simply choose my advanced properties and inherit field section and say I want to inherit this value from someplace else. I can either choose a relationship that party has existing today and inherit from that relationship, or if I leave it blank, I'm going to inherit from myself, which is this case, I'm going to inherit from my own legal parent. Submit this change to the data model and publish it. I can either create a new publication, in other words, a new version of my model, or I can update an existing publication. In this case, I'm going to update version 1 to have this change. When I publish version 1, I get a side-by-side comparison of the data model before and after the publish, saying the little plus sign indicating there's something new in my current model. It's going to add sales parent. I agree, and I publish it. It gives me a link to where that published data model resides, back in the Data tab. Now, if I open up the same JP Morgan, I could see that there's a sales parent that's automatically inherited from the legal parent. This little indication means that I'm inheriting it. If I click on it, I can override it with a different parent. But this can be done for me automatically in a hierarchy. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to create a new hierarchy now. And this one I'll call sales party by region. And rather than going to the legal parent, I'll go to the sales parent with the same hierarchy, state, country, and region, prune for all profiles, and I'll create and apply it. Now you can see the sales hierarchy looks just like the legal hierarchy. But what if I want to compare the two? I can simply choose to compare hierarchies. On the left will be my current state of the data, and on my right, I can choose what I want to compare it to. I can compare it to my current master data reference, or I can compare it to different points in time in both the future and the past. Maybe last year's Q4, or maybe January 1st of 2013. This could be a future sales hierarchy that will come effect then. For this demo, I'll choose to compare the current hierarchy. On the left, I'll choose my legal parent hierarchy, and on the right, I'll choose my sales parent. Now I can expand these and compare them side by side and make the necessary changes. Perhaps it's this particular party from a sales perspective is going to be a subsidiary of this so that my sales roll up into that one party. Here you can see my sales hierarchy is changing, but my legal hierarchy is not changing. Of course, everything you do has to be governed and has to be audited, so at any point I want to, I can click on the table and choose to view the history. The history of the table shows me everything that's changed, whether it's a creation, a deletion, or an update, who changed it, and what was changed. So here I can see where things have changed. And it's also easy to search. I can search by a specific user or a role. I can search by an operation. I can specify columns to sort. And I can also give a date range that I want to search the history for. But a lot of times, creating hierarchies or changing hierarchies or creating parties is a governed process where you have approvals, you have enrichment that has to occur, etc. We do this through workflows. So I'd like to create an instance of a workflow and walk through it with you. Let's create a new party with stewardship. We'll call it today's demo, get the instance of it. And when I look at this instance of the workflow, I can get a graphical representation of what's going to happen. The first thing that happened was I created a data space. That term is our way of saying everything that happens in this workflow will not be effective to the master data until the workflow is complete and all the approvals have happened. It's going to happen in its own space and time. Green means it's completed, orange means it's ready to go, and I'm waiting for someone who has the creator profile to be able to do this. So I'm going to log out of EBX as administrator, sign in as Carl. Carl has the ability to create new parties. When I sign on, you can notice immediately he has less tabs because his authority is different than the administrators, so he doesn't see a lot of that. And he has a little 1 indicating that he has a workflow task waiting for him. When I click on the 1, I can see that he has the ability to create a new party. So he's going to either allocate it to someone or take and start it himself. In this case, I'll take and start it. Let's create a new party called JP Morgan, and I'll put the word demo on the end. It's the demo version of JP Morgan. We'll say the parent is at Maxwell JP Morgan. Legal name again is going to be JP Morgan demo. Country of registration, I'll just pick anything. These are linking to those reference tables that we talked about earlier, etc. And I put in a few more fields. You can notice there's no address information. That's because Carl has the right to create a new party, but he doesn't have the ability to put in address information. That will come from our HR department. He hits the submit button, and that processes any business rules against it. Since it passed the business rules, he's ready to go. You may want to put a comment in on the workflow for other people downstream of the workflow to know what he did. So he can put any information he'd like in, and then accept the task. Once he accepts the task, the workflow moves on to the next step. Here you can see party is complete. Here's his comment, tells me who did it and when, and says the next step is HR details. If I switch over to my Outlook, you can see that someone got an email today saying that a new party was created and needs some HR details. How works in HR? I'm going to close my browser and follow this link back to EBX. And you can see that Hal also has a new workflow item for today's demo. He has to add HR details, enrich the data. So he's going to start this task. And immediately now we see he has information in party location that Carl did not have. But the information that Carl entered is read-only to him. So he's going to enter some more information, maybe email address. Chrome automatically fills out some of the stuff that I typed in before. Put it in the state of maybe Alabama and the country, United States. I can search in any of my drop-down list box, choose United States, etc. I'll submit this. My rules are passed. I'll put a comment in, HR details complete. And I'll accept my task to move this forward. Now Sally received an email. If I look in Sally's email, I'll see that she just received an email today saying that a new party was created, but it's a potential for duplicates, and she needs to do some stewardship process. So she's going to follow the link and go ahead to her workflow tab and look at today's demo and see that there was an automatic step to determine if there's duplicates. Duplicates were found, so a merge duplicate step was created. Sally's going to take and start this step. When she does, she'll be presented with a list of possible duplicates. Here's a class that has a 90% match on the legal name and party name. She's going to select that and go to a merge step. EBX is providing her a side-by-side example of one or more candidates that may be merged. And she can selectively go through each one of these and choose what her new golden record will look like if this was indeed a duplicate. At the end, if she chooses the merge button, she'll be presented with dependencies that are linked to the entities that are being merged, and a choice of does she want these dependencies to be linked to the new merged record, or should they not be linked and handled separately. But in this case for the demo, there is no real duplicate. This is actually a unique new entity, so she's going to say no duplicates and decide to just reject the duplicate altogether because this is a unique entity. Now that she's done, I'm going to log in as some of our approvers. For instance, Alice is our business approver. When she logs in, she has some work to do for today's demo. We're at an approval step, and there's two types of approvers that have to happen. One is the business approver, and one's the executive approver. Since Alice is the business approver, she can go ahead and take and start this and look at what's been done. She has read-only access, but she can see everything that happened, and she can make comments and accept or reject it. If it's rejected, it'll go back to the workflow, and corrections will need to be made, or other things will have to happen, and then come back to her for approval. But in this case, she'll accept it. Now she can see her acceptance has happened, and it's waiting for an executive approver. So I'll log off, and I'll log in as Eric, our executive approver. He's got some work to do. You can see that he's on the approval step, that Alice has already approved it, and it's waiting for him to approve. At any point, he can go back into this workflow and see what happened and who did what and what comments are happening, and he can approve this. He's going to take and start it. Again, read-only, but he may have some questions. He could always run a history about this and see in the history that Carl did a creation, that Harry from HR did an update, and you can see exactly what fields were changed. He can make comments on this history if he wants, reject it or accept it. In his case, he'll accept it. If we look at the workflow, now that the approvals are done, we're at the merge data space step. This is an administration step. It can happen automatically or manually. I'm doing it manually so that you can see what happens. But this is where we're going to take the data that was created in this workflow and make it live in master data. Let's sign out as Eric and sign in as our administrator and show you that merge data space. Before I merge the data space, though, I do want to look and show you that they're in our live demo. There is no party with the word demo. So I'm going to do a quick text search. Our quick search allows us at any time to look in the model for anything we want. So I'm going to select all fields and search, and we can see there is nothing called demo. But maybe I wanted to know what's in Japan. I can do a search for Japan to show me what things are in Japan. And by the way, this search works in our hierarchical views. So if I apply my region by legal parent, you can see that Japan has filtered my hierarchy by that search as well. So that's a quick search. No demo exists. When I go to my workflow tab and I complete the merge, that will exist. So let's take and start the merge. You'll notice I get a lock message. This means that during the merge step, I've locked the data space so concurrent updates cannot occur. If concurrent updates do occur, I can get a message saying that they have occurred and what do I want to do. But in this case, it's locked so they won't happen. At different tables, I can drill into each one to see what happened. At party table, I can see there's a plus sign indicating my master data does not have this party. It's being added. Clicking on the details will allow me to see what the details of the party are that are being added and what relationships exist for that party. And if there were multiple things happening, I could selectively choose which ones I want to merge and which ones I don't want to merge with this marked as decided. Since I only have one change, I'm going to mark that one change as decided, and these green check marks mean I'm ready to merge. I can click this merge, and it's now become part of my master data. If I go back to my data tab and do that same search for demo, you can see now that JPMorgan Chase demo exists that I created today. And it's automatically put into the sales hierarchy and the legal hierarchy based on those choices. But our search can be much more complex. This is a very simple search. Maybe I want to create searches that I'm going to use over and over again. We do that through something called a view. Let me create a view for you now. Let's call this view a region view. It could be anything you want. And I can also say who has access to the view. Is it just for me? Is it for a department? Is it for everyone? In this case, I'll make it for everyone. And now I'm going to configure the filters. Just like the filters for the hierarchy, I can have filters on a view. So I'm going to create a block of criteria where everything in that block must match. within that block, I'll create an individual criteria. In this case, I'm going to say that the country of the location let's say it must start with the word Japan. But you can see it could be contains, matches, mixed case, whichever. And if this was a numeric field, it would give me numeric operations. If it was a date field, a date operation, etc. I could have as many criteria as I want, but for this example, I'll just use one. Now I'm going to configure the columns that I want in this view. I could choose individually what columns will show up. Maybe I don't care about date created, or maybe I don't care about the spouse's name. I can remove them from my view. When I create and apply it, I can now see that only the one entity whose country is Japan is shown. But these views are dynamic. In the filters view, you can see here's that view I just created. And I could change the argument of Japan to United. And now I'll see everybody who exists in the United States. These views can also be filtered and layered. For instance, I could apply a view to my hierarchy as well as search within America for anything that's JP Morgan. This makes it very powerful for me to combine filters and search on top of each other to get custom results. These can be saved and reused and done based on permissions. That is the end of my demo. Hopefully I've given you a good example of how we accomplish governance through the workflow, as well as the dynamic nature of our data models, past, present, and future.